I'm completing my final mock draft for the 2025 NFL Draft, starting with my Tennessee Titans, whose first selection's gonna be, as of this moment in time, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, we are taking Cameron Ward. And just an FYI, I'm gonna be selecting based on who I think each team's actually gonna take in the draft, not who I would take. And with that being the case, with me trying to prove I'm a smart boy, or at least smarter than what a lot of you think, I will be adding some stakes to this mock draft, which I'll explain here in just a minute. And I'm gonna make this short and sweet so I can talk about Cam Ward for an hour. I genuinely believe the people who don't think Cam should go number 1 just think so because they don't like this quarterback class as a whole. He's got everything you want, a potential franchise quarterback, and I'm just gonna leave it off by doing this. Almost 30-year-old grown man, by the way. So the draft really starts at number 2 here with the Browns, and they could go a few different options. Now, for every pick I ultimately get wrong once the draft actually happens, I have to give away $10 in Microsoft/PSN codes to subscribers in a future video. That's up to $320 I have to potentially give away. So I've got to make sure I get this Browns pick spot on. So I think this obviously comes down to 3 players. Either going to be Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or if they're feeling kind of frisky, Shedeur Sanders at 2. With a rumor on the street, Kirk Cousins just spotted at a Cleveland Chipotle. So I think it's more likely that the Browns actually trade for Kirk Cousins and take Shedeur at number 2. And I think at the end of the day, the momentum right now is moving towards Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns. Him and Myles Garrett on the same defensive line is just not fair. There's got to be an amendment to the Constitution to outlaw that. Like, I do think Abdul Carter's probably the best overall prospect in this draft class. Like, I think he's like a clone of Von Miller, but again, he's gonna go 2 because my Titans want Cam Ward. Next up, we have the Giants at 3, and honestly, I think this is where the draft starts to get difficult. I think right now, Cam Ward and Abdul Carter are pretty safe to be going 1 and 2. Now, the Giants, they could go Travis Hunter. This is obviously a very obvious option. But again, they are desperate for the quarterback position. So, like, do they go ahead and take Shedeur Sanders here? I mean, obviously, they've already signed Jameis Winston. They've already signed Russell Wilson. Although I don't think that eliminates them from taking Shedeur Sanders here. I do think that did eliminate them from trading up to number 1 to take Cam Ward. But they still easily could take Shedeur here and have him sit maybe half the season, maybe the whole entire season. But at the end of the day, Brian Daboll and the GM over there, they are desperate to win because they don't win this season, they're gonna get fired. So I think they're gonna take the prospect that helps them the most win right now, and I think that is obvious at this point, Travis Hunter. And this doesn't mean the Giants still won't trade up and get Shedeur Sanders. You'll have to see what happens a little bit later, but I think this is gonna be the pick as of right now, which means things start to get pretty tricky here with the Patriots at number 4. Now, I was kind of thinking they go Ted McMillan, but they just signed Stephon Diggs, so I don't think they'd reach on him here. I don't really think he's a top 5 prospect. Probably the best wide receiver in the draft, but not a top 5 guy. I think the obvious choice here is probably offensive line, but I don't think it's gonna be Will Campbell though. I think the number 1 offensive tackle in this draft, and that's what the Patriots need, is gonna be Armand Mimbu out of Missouri. Guy is an absolute tank. This is probably my most controversial pick so far. I know for Patriots fans, probably not a sexy pick. Patriots fans are probably definitely hoping that one of the Browns or Giants take Shedeur Sanders, which means one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter would fall to them. But as a Patriots fan, I'd still be happy with an Armand Mimbu pick. Offensive line's been terrible over there. Needs somebody to protect your old franchise quarterback. Now, takes us to pick number 5 here with the Jacksonville Jags, and I think this is the most bland but obvious pick. Not a bad player at all. The new GM over there that looks a lot like Bingle. He said their main focus is building the interior, and I think the best player for the Jags need right now is Mason Graham out of Michigan, maybe even arguably a top 3 player in this entire class. The guy just can't be moved. He literally cannot be moved from that defensive line, and I think this would be a pretty nasty pick here for the Jags at 5. And also at the same time, I want you guys to let me know in the comment section below what you think about my pick for your favorite team. I've probably already had thousands of you scream at me so far. That takes us to 6 with the Las Vegas Raiders, and again, I think this is a pretty obvious pick and a pretty obvious fit. A lot of you that haven't been keeping up with the draft stuff might be shocked here, but I think it's pretty penciled in right now that ASHTON JEANTY from the Boise State Broncos, yes, a running back, is going to go number 6, and I think it is an incredible incredible fit. Talk about the term generational. I genuinely believe ASHTON JEANTY is a generational running back, and I think he genuinely has all-pro potential from day one. I mean, just look at him, dude. Now, the Jets here at number 7, I think really comes down to 2 different positions. I don't think, again, they're going to go wide receiver. You might see Tet fall a little bit in my mock. I think it's going to come down to Will Campbell on the offensive line, and at the same time, a very popular pick is old Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Be an incredible option at the position for new quarterback Justin Fields. I think he's quite easily the #1 tight end prospect in this entire class, so like for him to go top 10 wouldn't shock me, even though it was kind of be crazy if he goes top 10 and Brock Bowers didn't. The talk I've heard as of late might have Tyler Warren possibly falling out of the top 10, although that was a popular pick off the get-go. So honestly, I think Will Campbell is probably actually the better prospect. So you know what? They need offensive line help. Let's go Will Campbell to the Jets, number 7. Now the Panthers are an interesting pick because this is definitely where I would go different versus like where I think they're actually going to go. I would go Jahad Campbell. I think he's a top 10 player in this class. Might have a little Alabama bias, but I think he's an incredible player. Can play on the edge if you need him to. But the talk of the town is a little boy coming over from the University of Georgia, Jalen Walker. He's an athletic freak. Again, can play in the box, can play off the edge, can play in coverage if you need to. And I just think he's going to end up being a top 10 pick. And I think like, this feels like a Panthers pick to me. Jalen Walker, number 8 to the Carolina Panthers. This takes us to the Saints, dude. And again, this is a pick that I have absolutely no idea what to do here because the Saints really need best player available, and they could go a bunch of different ways, man. They could go Ted McMillan. They could go Tyler Warren. They could go one of the 5,000 incredible edge players that are in this draft class. And at the same time, you know who has fell at this point in the draft? Old Shedeur Sanders is still sitting there, but the question is, do the Saints really want to use a top 10 pick on him? Now, what's going to bite me in the butt is like there's a bunch of like trade down options that can happen. I'm probably going to end up getting those picks wrong, so that's going to cost me some money. So this is potentially a trade down situation because the Saints have so many needs. And you know what, dude? I think I'm not going to be frisky. I am going to let the Shedeur Sanders slide continue, and I'm going to go best player, I think, on the board right now, and Ted McMillan. I mean, that's kind of arguable. I mean, there's a bunch of players right now. They could go Jahad Campbell. Like, that's a very popular option. Oh, I'm struggling. You know what? Jahad Campbell. I think that just makes so much sense. He's such a good player. I just don't think he falls outside the top 10. That very easily could be Ted McMillan. That very easily could be Tyler Warren. Some of these are going to be tough, man. Now, you guys are going to love this. You're absolutely going to love this pick. I'm going out on a limb here. This is probably the first pick I get called stupid for, but I think they badly wanted ASHTON JEANTY. They also badly wanted Will Campbell. And at this point, I mean, they could go and take a Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks is probably, man, he's probably the second best tackle in this draft class. Like, there's a bunch of different ways that a lot of these teams could go. I mean, they could even get a little frisky, go ahead and go Kenneth Grant here. They could be a little frisky and go with one of these edge rushers. But you guys know every single year we have a pick that shocks us. Last year, Michael Penix to the Falcons. The year before that, Jahmyr Gibbs to the Lions. You know what? I am going with Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina in a normal draft, brother, without an ASHTON JEANTY. He'd be running back 1. I think he 100% ends up being a first-round selection. He is going to be my pick here. Bears fans, I gotta know if you like this or not. That takes us to the San Francisco 49ers, and this is so funny because I think this is a very unusual pick I'm about to make here. You don't see this a lot in a lot of mock drafts, but I think if the board falls the way it has up to this point, I think there's a pick right here that makes a lot of sense. We all know the 49ers lost Deebo Samuel this offseason. There's also still potential they could trade away Brandon Ayuk. So at that point, they would be kind of desperate for wide receiver help. Now, a bunch of picks here that make sense. Jahdae Barron would be a great pick here. Will Johnson here would be fantastic. I mean, he was once considered like a top 5 prospect. They also could use D-line, also could use anybody on the offensive line, maybe a Kelvin Banks. But if the draft falls the way it has, I do not think they pass up on the opportunity to draft Shedeur McMillan. Again, this is one you probably haven't seen anywhere, but it's make me feel smart. They do take. Now, the Cowboys at 12, they're frustrated. At this point, they are fuming because they desperately wanted one out of ASHTON JEANTY or Omarion Hampton. So I really think Hampton doesn't fall past 12. Like, yeah, 10 might be crazy, but even if it doesn't go there, I think the Cowboys would take him at 12. Also, I think if McMillan would have failed, they would have taken him there too. But a crazy selection I'm going to make right here. Luther Burden could potentially be the pick. What? I think the Cowboys do, in fact, go wide receiver. Get Dak, a good wide receiver, number 2. Let Jalen Tolbert be the 3. I think the Cowboys stay in Texas and select Matthew Golden from the Texas Longhorns. I think he's pretty easily wide receiver 2. He even could be wide receiver number 1 on some draft boards. He's an incredible route runner, very fast, great hands, great concentration down the field. It is generally like a really weird wide receiver class because it's not very top heavy at all. Like if you wanted a wide receiver with your first round pick, I'd be kind of sketched out about it. But there's so many good wide receivers that could go from round 3 to round 5. That's not me like trying to talk crap here about Matthew Golden. I think he's a very, very good pick. But in a normal year, I don't know if he goes top half of the first round, but still could turn into an absolute gem for the Cowboys. Next, we got the Dolphins, and I think they could go one of two ways here. They need offensive line help. They need help in that secondary after losing Javon Holland in free agency. I think this pick comes down to 3 players. I think they either go offensive tackle here and go Kelvin Banks out of Texas, or they do go to that safety position, either take Malachi Starks or take Nicholas here. Nick's been a very popular player. He's a lot of top analysts, number 1 safety, but I know I'm not any sort of top analyst. I just make Madden videos, but I feel pretty convinced personally that Malachi Starks is the best safety on the board. And I know Nick is a very popular pick here, but I'm going to stick to my guns here. I lose out on money if they get the pick wrong, but Malachi Starks, I'm going to have them going 13 to the Dolphins. Now, 14, as a Titans fan, I absolutely despise the way the board has fell up to this point. The Colts, they need tight end bad. Tyler Warren, I would hate for him to be in our division, but I think if he is here, the Colts take him without hesitation whatsoever. Barron could be the pick. They need help at cornerback, and it's crazy he's still on the board, but it's just how things fall sometimes. Players fall. It happens every year. I just don't think they could possibly pass up on Tyler Warren. Get Anthony Richardson if he has any chance of still being a franchise quarterback. A tight end, a comfort blanket to throw to. Again, this would frustrate me so much as a Titans fan, but yeah, I got Tyler Warren going 14 to the Colts. On to pick 15 with the Falcons, another team that could go receiver, they go edge, offensive line, linebacker. I do believe this is where we see a very, very polarizing player get drafted. A lot of people think he's going to go top 10. Some even say he's going to go top 5. I don't think so. But again, it's not what I do. It's what I think the teams would do. If the draft falls the way I think it will, I think this is where the fall of Shedeur Sanders goes. Yes, he's an athletic freak. Like, he has combine numbers comparable to Myles freaking Garrett, dude. But again, I know production doesn't necessarily translate into the NFL one way or the other, but like, come on, dude. He has 1.5 sacks every single season of his career at Texas A&M. Like, I feel like if you're that athletically gifted and you have potential as an NFL player, you should be putting on more than 2 sacks a year. But again, it's been players like Danielle Hunter who didn't do well in college productivity-wise, but turned into an absolute monster in the league. I'm not saying he's not going to turn into a good player in the league. I would rather go with a more proven guy. But I mean, in terms of value, with a lot of people thinking he's going to go top 10, I'd be happy with this as a Falcons fan. Moving on to the Cardinals here, they very easily could go offensive line, but I think the slide stops here. There's no way Shedeur Barron should be falling out of the top 15, so the Cardinals are ecstatic to take him. Again, it's crazy to me Will Johnson is still sitting here, but sometimes the board just falls one way or another. Now, the Bengals at 17, I think they can only go one way since they've given out $5 billion in contracts to wide receivers. Still a chance they trade away Trey Hendrickson. They need defensive line badly. Mike Green's the best one still on the board, although, like, depending on their personal preference, man. I mean, James Pierce wouldn't shock me. Donovan Ezeraiku wouldn't shock me. Ooh, Michael Williams still being there is kind of crazy. Boy, I personally think Mike Green's a better player. I think they have to go with him here. Michael Williams probably getting off the board here fast. I'm kind of shocked he's made it to this point, but to me, Mike Green is the best fit, and I think Bengals fans should be so happy if they make this selection. Seahawks at pick number 18. I'll make this snappy, dude. We just mentioned them. They need edge help. They could also be a very sneaky team to go Luther Burden. They could be a very sneaky team to go ahead and rock with Colston Loveland. Some people have Loveland as their tight end number 1. I don't personally see it. I think Tyler Warren clear number 1, but they could go Loveland. They also could go offensive line here. I'm not gonna lie, Gray Zabel is actually very tempting here. Let's do it, actually. I was about to 100% go Michael Williams, but for what the Seahawks need, I think they would be over the freaking moon for Zabel to still be there. There's a very good chance he can go 16 to the Cardinals. This is a guy that could play literally anywhere in the offensive line, had a great Senior Bowl. He's a very safe, but very good pick for the Seahawks here at 18. Moves us on to the Bucs at 19. And I think this comes down to 2 players. Will the fall of Will Johnson stop here, or will the the fall of Michael Williams stop here. Again, Michael Williams finding the top 20 would be nuts, but same thing with Will Johnson. You know what? We're going with Williams. Lockdown corner at the collegiate level. He has kind of short arms and some injury problems, so that's kind of why he's fallen here to 20, but still has all-pro potential. So an incredible value pick here for the Bucks at number 19. Now, this is where things are going to get nutty. I think I've had a few crazy picks. Like, I think McMillan at 11 is kind of wild. I think Hampton is very wild at number 10. But I think things are about to get even crazier here. I told you guys the Giants still had a chance to get Shedeur Sanders. I think if Shedeur was to fall to 21, the Steelers would be all over it. So I'm going to be crazy here. Have the Denver Broncos trade out. And I think reason being, too, this makes a lot of sense because I think the Broncos had their eye on probably Amari and Hampton falling there. And I just really don't think they need a running back badly. I just don't think there's somebody left on the board worth taking in the first round at the running back position. I think Caleb Johnson probably the next best up, maybe Judkins. But I think the Broncos make a trade here with the New York Giants. Now, I might not get this trade compensation down pat, so give me a break. But what I think would be worth it, moving up 14 spots back into the first round. I think it would probably take their third rounder for this year and probably maybe even their second from next year. Especially passing the Steelers to take a quarterback. I think this is fair compensation. So with this trade, the Giants are back in the clock and they grab themselves a Shedeur Sanders with pick number 20. What makes it even crazier is that means Shedeur Sanders is pairing back up with Travis Hunter. Keep in mind, every pick I get wrong is $10 for you guys, so you should be happy that I'm making some crazy picks here. Now, what in the world do the Steelers do here? I think the Steelers wanted Shedeur there. They also wanted one of those running backs, and you're not taking a Cam Scatterbo, you're not taking Judkins, you're not taking any of these guys the first round pick. Now, what can get really tricky is Jackson Dart here has some legs to it. Now, the real tricky thing here is at the time I'm recording this, Aaron Rodgers hasn't made his decision. Like, is he going to sign with the Steelers? Is he going to retire? And even if Aaron Rodgers does sign with the Steelers, I don't know if that even keeps the Steelers from taking the quarterback in the first round. But I will say I'm not a big fan of Jackson Dart. Again, this isn't supposed to be me making picks how I would, but at the same time, I just don't think there's any planet where the Steelers really think Jackson Dart's worth the number 1 pick. Maybe they get like a Milroe in the second round. But again, it's all about how the board falls, and they could use a little edge help. I mean, a team like the Steelers with another edge would be crazy. Or they could even stop the slide of old Nicholas here, but at the same time, just based on value, I think his fall ends here. Michael Williams is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler in this mock. This brings us to 22 with the Chargers, and I think this is a very, very obvious, like probably my easiest pick since possibly Barron at 16. This makes too much sense. Yeah, I think they could go wide receiver, but like they showed they were fine without a bunch of top wide receivers last year in that offense. What they could use, though, is a superstar tight end. Colston Loveland, former Michigan man with old Harbaugh. I think this makes too much sense reuniting with his old head coach, Loveland. Welcome to Los Angeles, brother. Now here, Packers at pick number 23. I think they would honestly be desperate for cornerback, and they could go Maxwell Hairston. Depending on how Siobhan Ravel kind of checks out medically, like he's a guy that has all the potential in the world, but I think because of the medical history, I think he's going to fall into the second round. Thomas here at Florida State is potential too, but again, this is all about value. And also, I want you guys to keep in mind, I'm not just making these picks out of a hat, like I'm taking a bunch of stuff into consideration. Rumors around the league, mock drafts by people in the know. I'm even kind of taking some betting odds into consideration, so I'm not just like pulling these names out of a hat. Also, when players fall, what logically makes sense in my head. So, there's been some rumors around the league with what the Packers want to do, and I think, again, with how everything is fallen, Packers would be very, very happy to take Kelvin Banks out of the University of Texas. I mean, I think he's arguably, you can even have him as your tackle number 1. So getting him at 23 would be incredible value. Now here, Vikings pick number 24. I think this is an obvious pick. I think they need help in that secondary. Again, this could be easily corner. Maxwell Hairston, Trey Amos, Thomas, probably one of those three have a great chance to go here. But with, again, the value left on the board, kind of shocked he's still here. I think this is where the fall of old St. Nicholas finally ends. Incredible safety, elite size, dude. 6'3", 227, and extremely fast. Great in coverage, very solid against the run. Be that long-term Harrison Smith replacement, which he is coming back for another year, Harrison Smith is. I think if he falls to 24, that Vikings front office, their eyes are just going to light up. I think this is great value. Now, I think the Texans are so frustrated with what's happened. They need offensive tackle badly. Kelvin Banks off the board. I think that's who they are eyeing here. So I think they probably still go offensive line. It just comes down to who. It comes down to 2. I think it's come down to Josh Simmons. Was there some question marks health-wise? I think he's coming off a patellar tendon injury. Ariante Ursery out of Minnesota. He is a potential first-round tackle as well. I think there's also been some maturity questions surrounding Josh Simmons, so that's kind of questionable too. So you know what? This is another instance where I'm going to go out on the limb. I think Ursery is going to be the pick. I don't know why they have him ranked 60th best player. If he doesn't get taken in the first round, he's probably an early second-round pick. So again, Texans fans don't scream at me like you need tackle badly, and I think he's the best one still at the board at this point. And the Rams at 26, this is actually potentially a trade down option. Like maybe the Chiefs want to trade up for, you know, one of the edge still on the board. I mean, really, any of these teams could possibly one of these edges, because there's still some very, very good pass rushers still on the board. Like James Pierce still being there, Azariku still being here is really crazy. Also, there's 3 defensive linemen here still being on the board is nuts. Kenneth Grant's such a good player. But nothing is too apparent to me, so I'm not going to mock a trade down here. I'll go cornerbacks. I think that's the Rams' biggest position in need right now. Maybe even linebacker, but there's not really any linebackers I think worth taking left in the first round. I know Carson Swessinger, he has been mocked in a lot of first rounds, and he has flown up draft boards recently. A good all-around linebacker, but I don't think he goes here. It would be kind of interesting. I think about it, him sticking in Los Angeles, but I think cornerback makes more sense, and it just comes down to which one. I mean, really take your pick of the bunch. It really, I think, would come down to Trey Amos, Hairston, Ravel, Thomas, and I'm just going to go Amos. Trey Amos, very good cornerback, good potential, good pick here for the Rams. Now, honestly, I think these last 5 teams in the first round, they are so happy. They are so happy with how this board has fallen because the players they need are still on the board. Ravens, I think this is an easy one. They could go edge here. One of Pierce as a Raikou, but I think they look at the talent still on the interior of the defensive line, and they are happy. They are so happy. I think they're going to take one of Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. I don't know if Alexander's really in the conversation. Harmon is a popular pick here, but I don't know if they go Harmon over Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant's got to be the pick here, surely. That takes us to the Lions at 28. Again, this is going to be a snappy one. I think we saw last year what happened down the stretch, especially with seeing how the Eagles were able to finish the job. The Lions need help alongside that front 7. You can never have enough pass rushers on the squad, so they go edge here, and the only question is they go James Pierce as a Raikou. Even the other St. Nicholas, he could be in the conversation. Maybe even a guy like Jack Sawyer or Braden Swinson could possibly go late first round. Swinson's actually a very good player. Hopefully my Titans can get him in the second. But I think this is where a James Pierce goes. I mean, as a Raikou's so good. He's so good, but it's really like pick your poison. I'm gonna go James Pierce. Been some question marks about, his maturity level, but if anybody's gonna get the best out of an immature young lad, it's gonna be Dan Campbell. Now, I don't think the Commanders waste any time here. Pick number 29. They just go with the other guy. Donovan Ezeraiku is gonna be the pick here, and my God, dude, that's such a good fit. That is such a good fit. These two teams, man, they're so happy with what just happened. I think the Bills at this point very frustrated as they would have taken either of these two. And here's the question. I don't know if you would go ahead and reach, since they need edge badly, I don't know if they'd reach on one of these guys over going ahead and taking a Walter Nolan, a Derek Harmon. They again could even go cornerback here, maybe even Thomas. But I think at this point they weigh up their positions of need and kind of the value still on the board, and I don't think there's any way with who's still out there you pass up on Derek Harmon. I think he would be an incredible pick there for the Bills at 30. And for the Chiefs at 31, 2 different ways they could go. They could either just go ahead, take Josh Simmons. They need tackle help badly. Like, do they take a guy that is coming off a pretty severe injury? Or do they go with a position that, they could use quite a bit, and that's interior D-line. Walter Nolan still there is nuts. He could be a top 15 player. But I'm going to have to pick one or the other, and I think it's going to be Josh Simmons. I think they need offensive line help badly, and that was apparent in the Super Bowl. Offensive tackle help specifically. Like, if they matched up with their current offensive line against the Eagles again, they get dominated. Probably even worse than last year. So, Josh Simmons is going to be the pick, and I think that'd be a huge upgrade what they have at tackle right now. And that brings us to the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think there's like one thing they're gonna do, like the Eagles do it every single year. It's gonna be either edge, it's gonna be either defensive lineman, and I think they take the best one on the board. And the question is, though, is that Walter Nolan? Is that Nicholas? Is that even potentially Landon Jackson, Braden Swinson, a Princely? And you know what? I think I'm gonna go down a little bit. I'm gonna take Braden Swinson. Call me insane, but I think a pretty good replacement for Joshua Sweat. As this, my friends, is your final 2025 RBT NFL mock draft. Go ahead and scream at me in the comments. If you enjoyed that one for whatever reason, you can click right here to watch another video on the channel. And if you're still here, haven't clicked that video just yet, click that subscription button, brother. Trying to get to like 1.5 million subs by the release of Madden 26. We can do that if you guys click subscribe.